Coming up on this Wednesday edition of Montana This Morning, we're learning more about a suspicious death in Butte and who police are questioning.
And it's one of the most watched Supreme Court cases this term, and it originated right here in Montana.
6:30 on this hump day. Chet Lehman, Caitlin Corbett, Matt Elwell with you here. Interesting overnight. My house I thought was going to blow away. I figured I'd be buried in snow. I did get a little snow. It did make the roads a little slow.
And the wind has let up this morning, but again, blowing and drifting snow on some of the area roadways. You may have some ice building up. Black ice has been reported this morning, so keep that in mind. Bozeman Pass, Homestake Pass, both dealing with snow and ice covered and black ice. Also some scattered snow and ice down the Gallatin Canyon this morning. Temperatures are below freezing for most of us this morning. And that means that slick road conditions very possible with a light dusting of snow. The snow is not going to be the big issue for the rest of the day. The wind's going to be a big issue in the morning. You'll probably have your commute with the ice and black ice to deal with. But other than that, it looks like we're basically dealing with a mild afternoon with some wind. We'll talk more about what you can expect, of course, coming from the Billion Auto Weather Patio in just a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Matt. 6:31 now on this Wednesday. Our top local story, a 23-year-old Butte woman is being questioned by police in connection with the death of a Butte man on Monday.
Police say a 49-year-old man died from injuries he received during a domestic incident at an apartment off of Trinity Loop. Police are waiting on results from the crime lab to determine cause of death while the investigation continues.
Right now, again, we're meeting with the county attorney's office. We are down at the crime scene still. We have to document the crime scene, draw the crime scene up. We then have to bring our findings to the county attorney's office to see what the next step would be.
And as of right now, no charges have been filed.
In other court news, a Bozeman man who investigators say has a long list of crimes in Gallatin County was back in court, this time for violating his probation by his use of Snapchat.
According to court documents, 19-year-old Tanner Wood is accused of tampering with evidence after Bozeman police detectives say he was being interviewed when they became aware that Wood was posting photos of guns, dangerous drugs, and cash, all using the app.
Detectives say those photos also revealed newly undiscovered crimes, while already being a suspect, including having and selling drugs, stealing a vehicle, and several guns and armed robberies.
It appears that he's incapable of being law-abiding or abiding by court orders. He was just released OR for felony theft of motor vehicle from district court.
You are out of control. You cannot be trusted in the state's assessment of the fact that community safety is important. You are a threat to society.
Judge Adams went on to set Wood's bond at $100,000.
A commotion in a Bozeman neighborhood forced a street to be shut down and some concern with neighbors.
Yeah, firefighters say it started when a utility trailer caught on fire. Smoke could be seen from Bozeman High School. Now, Bozeman police, firefighters, and an ambulance stood by as crews worked to put out that blaze, which burned several trees nearby along Curtis between 11th and 12th Avenue. Investigators say no one was around the trailer when it started, and fortunately, no one was hurt.
Thank God there.
Yeah.
The State Department of Environmental Quality is holding a public meeting this week regarding the rail yard cleanup project going on in Livingston.
MTN's Gabby Crevitt has the details.
DEQ officials will hold a public meeting and present the site's areas of contamination and an update on the cleanup process so far. The State Superfund site is in Livingston and is about 2 miles long and a half a mile wide. It includes an active rail yard used by the Montana Rail Link, which was formerly operated by BNSF. BNSF has already been working to clean up the site for years. DEQ project officer Eric Woodland says there have been big improvements, but there's still plenty of work left to do.
The cleanup, like being Livingston, is actually fairly complex in that there's not just one chemical there and it's not just in one place. So the cleanup or closure, if you will, kind of happens in phases. We've ticked off several phases and we know that we're good there, but we still have a few to go.
In a statement, BNSF says it's been working cooperatively with DEQ and much progress has been made to advance the cleanup at the site in Livingston. The meeting will be this Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m. in the community room at the City County Complex in Livingston. Back to you at the desk.
Thank you, Gabby. And other news now at 6:34. Today, the U.S. Supreme Court will hear one of the most watched cases of its current term.
It's a case that originated right here in Montana. MTN's Mike Dennison has a story.
Espinoza versus the state of Montana had its beginnings 5 years ago with the passage of a $150 state income tax credit for donations that ultimately funded scholarships for students at private schools. But the Montana Revenue Department said the tax credit-funded scholarships could not go to students at religious schools because Montana's Constitution forbids any state support of any church. Kendra Espinoza and 2 other parents whose children attend Stillwater Christian School in Kalispell sued. They're represented by the Institute for Justice, a national organization that defends public aid to private schools.
When I was denied the scholarship for my girls, I felt it was very discriminatory, very unfair, simply because they went to a religious school.
The Montana Supreme Court ruled against the parents and threw out the entire tax credit, saying it violated the state's constitutional ban on government aid to churches. The Institute and Espinoza appealed that ruling to the U.S. Supreme Court and are asking it to strike down that portion of Montana's Constitution. As they argue in their brief filed with the nation's highest court, this court should reverse the Montana Supreme Court's judgment and hold that government cannot bar the choice of religious schools in student aid programs, whether through a bigoted constitutional provision or otherwise. This holding would allow Montana's scholarship program to continue and also remove a major barrier to educational opportunity for children nationwide. The case has drawn national attention. More than 30 groups supporting religious schools have filed briefs for Espinoza. Montana's 2 Republican members of Congress, U.S. Representative Greg Gianforte and U.S. Senator Steve Daines, also filed a brief opposing their own state in support of allowing aid to religious schools. But more than a dozen groups, including some congregational churches from Montana and Wyoming and the Montana Association of Rabbis, are siding with the state. They say the ban actually protects religious freedom, and that's what the state argues too.
We think the First Amendment has, for the entire history of our country, rejected this idea that public funds can be coerced and sent into particular religion's education.
Graybill also says breaking down that wall in Montana's Constitution could harm public school funding.
And if that protection for public schools is gone, which is what the petitioners are asking the Supreme Court to do in this case, there are very few roadblocks left that prevent a future legislature from taking that public school funding formula and allocating it directly to private schools.
But State Representative Bill Mercer, a Billings lawyer who co-represented Espinoza in state court, says he thinks that fear is overblown.
Could the tax credit be increased? A future legislature could do that. That is true. But we all know that in the state of Montana, public institutions delivering K-12 education are central, important.
The U.S. Justice Department under the Trump administration has also weighed in on this case for the parents in Kalispell and against the state of Montana and its Constitution. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
And the Supreme Court will rule on this case later this year.
We'll continue to follow that progress. Meantime, 6:38, this is kind of interesting. Companies are trying a new way to tackle productivity by tracking employees' sleep.
Yeah, that could get interesting for some of
For
us,
sure.
especially here on the morning show. That includes diagnosing and treating sleep apnea. Researchers at the University of Colorado say it can seriously disrupt sleep, which can affect how good you are at your job during the day.
You could be more likely to be in conflicts with your co-employees and things like that. And certainly you could be more distracted. And so easily that could negatively influence the next day productivity at work.
And lack of sleep, of course, can also trigger health problems like high blood sugar and cholesterol levels. Researchers at the University of Minnesota and Harvard looked into truck drivers who were screened and treated for sleep apnea. They found the company saved more than $400 a month in health costs.
Be coming at it just from the perspective of, if the employee opts into it and they, are sort of tracking their sleep with a wearable or something like that, there could be benefits, and maybe there could be general, programs that a company offers to just, sort of inform their employees what optimal sleep is and ways to improve their sleep, even if they're not tracking it.
Now, as more companies get on board with tracking sleep and other health factors, some are raising concerns over privacy.
There are proposed bills in California and New York that call for protections, including forbidding employers from requiring workers to participate in these types of wellness programs.
Researchers say while this tracking may be beneficial, it's important to remain optional. That's a super interesting story there.
That is so
Sleep is a
interesting.
factor for that. I will definitely say that that's an issue for us. How much sleep you get definitely affects the work that we're able to do here. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with all of that.
And another note, experts at Consumer Reports say if you do decide to opt into one of those programs, ask whether it's covered by HIPAA, which makes sure your health information is private. And you can also look into whether the program really helps you in the long run.
Interesting.
I don't know if it would say we got that much sleep, but
less than you think, maybe. Yeah. 6:40. We're going to take a quick break here on Montana This Morning. When we come back, U.S. confirms its first case of the coronavirus. What you need to watch out for. And
coming up, President Trump's campaign manager joins us to talk about re-election strategy and capitalizing on the impeachment trial. Plus, Gayle King's conversation with Grammy nominee Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani. Coming up on CBS This Morning.